So a very, very warm welcome back. Be with us, everybody, and all of you online. We are reaching what I call the twilight moments of this incredibly content-rich event. Please stay with us because this is a superb final panel. And then, of course, we are going to have some brilliant moments with Commissioner Vestager right at the end. So don't go away because I promise you, you'll miss something really valuable if you leave now. Now, we're going to quickly check in with our illustrator. If you are being, look, you are lucky. Finally, it came up, right? The technical team has just been, so here we are. Here we go. So, yes, so here we are with these fabulous unicorns. We have a fabulous unicorn winner here with us on the stage, but really, really interesting to look at that diversity. For me, the real diversity of using digital and, as Jen said there, the sustainability, the link with sustainability, this fantastic app that really looks at food waste, this brilliant, talent, it's come up again and again and again today. So really matching businesses with talent and how that is expanding to the Netherlands, to the UK. I've just pushed actually for them to expand to Belgium. And of course, we've got all sorts of activity on Twitter. So we have about 40 minutes to finish this adventure, and I will introduce you in just a moment, I promise. We're going to get stuck into this last panel discussion on data and the green recovery, and the power is at our fingertips. That's what we're saying. What are we going to explore? How data can support the green recovery in the European Union, but obviously beyond. Let's just remember, again, Digital Europe's recent paper, Digital Action Equals Climate Action, and these 8 concrete ideas to accelerate the twin transition, and really showing how digital tools can help to cut global carbon emissions by 20%. Data is essential to harness the full power of digital across various economic sectors. So I think we heard some of them actually earlier. We heard from the Nokia CEO, but if we just take one, data on rainfall patterns to enable farmers to make smart decisions on water and fertilizer usage, real-time data. We're going to talk about that in production processes to optimize energy usage and more. Now, first of all, I'm going to ask if we can see who we've got on this panel. Then I'm going to run a poll. And just for the benefit of the people on the panel, I'm just going to cite 3 or 4 quotes that I've heard throughout the day that I want to tie into this as a kind of a headline for our discussions. So here I have with me, which is fabulous, Carey. Now, she is Global VP of Strategy and Public Affairs at Circulor. So first of all, huge congratulations. What did you think about the unicorn that people were...
A big blob.
A big blob.
But good attempt.
Oh, you're such a diplomat. I like it. A big blob, but good attempt.
Good
Katrina.
attempt. Yeah.
And of course, just a reminder for those who perhaps weren't in that session, am I correct, Circulor, to quote Douglas there, really focuses on bringing traceability to complex industrial supply chains. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. And thank you again to Digital Europe and the whole team here for the honor and the award.
Great to have you with me in my living room here. We also have online, which is fabulous. I can't see you on the return screen, but I can see you're there. We have the Deputy Director General from DG Climate Action at the European Commission, Clara de la Torre. We also have from Hewlett-Packard Enterprises, the Director of Corporate Affairs, and her name is Irma Jiminéz-Guler. And I hope I've pronounced that sufficiently well. And also we have from the European Policy Centre, the Head of Sustainable Prosperity for Europe programme, and that's Annika Hedberg. Now, before I dive into your brains, let's just run a poll to check that our lovely audience are still with us and thriving as we're moving into the twilight part of this event. Here we go, and you can see it if you want to see. How do you view the digital sector's contribution to the EU's climate agenda? It's positive, because it drives energy. Neutral, actually, quite frankly, I need to know more, and that's why obviously you're watching this panel. Negative, I'm concerned about the energy consumption of our digital habits, and that is something that we are going to touch upon in this session. So at the moment, interesting. Are you surprised at that? The neutral, I need to know more. Are you surprised at that, Ellen?
No, I'm not. I think there's always a massive amount of education to do. Yep. And we have to come together and do that because we can't assume that others are coming with us, but we have to continue to educate on the benefits and the technology.
Okay, and you are going to do some of that on this panel. I said to you that I would, here we go. Yep, going neutrality and positive. Okay, so there is a change there. And certainly we're erring on the side of positive, less than negative. Now, welcome to all of you online. I do want to, in case you didn't catch, there are a couple of things I wanted to quote. The Nokia CEO, here we go, if we're talking data. He said in an interview with Cecilia, we've got a strong industrial base with fantastic source of industrial data, but 80% is wasted. I also heard there is no green without digital. And this is important for this. Interestingly, we heard from the French presidency this morning, the head of digital economy at the Ministry of Economy, we heard, well, green and digital is actually only really just emerging, which I was really quite surprised about genuinely. And this one, for the Future Unicorns, the awards that we just had, there was a brilliant survey done with unicorns and small businesses by Digital Europe. And they were saying, listen, can you give recommendations, can the scale-ups give recommendations on structural changes for growth? And one of the concrete ones was, please improve data cooperation. So there we go. That's just to give a bit of context and to show you all that I have been listening throughout the day. May I come to the Commission first, the lovely Clara de la Torre, because it's so delightful to see you again. First obvious thing, what role does data play in the EU's overall action plan? Can you spell it out for us, please?
Thank you very much. Thank you for your warm words, Katrina, and thank you for Digital Europe for inviting us here today. Someone has said, and it is said often that data are the blood of our economy. But I would say that data is also the blood for our policy making, because we need to have access to environmental, industrial, societal data for our economy, and therefore we need that for our Green Deal transformation, digital transformation. In our path towards the 2050 neutrality, climate neutrality, we need data, because it's important to develop in every economic area, for developing new processes, new materials, you name it. We can come to that afterwards. It is also very important to have data, comprehensive data about climate, environment, energy, industry, when we are developing our future climate policies. And you've seen all the analysis which is underpinning our policy proposals. If we had even more data, it would be even more better. We have also the issue of climate adaptation. So is addressing the effects that climate is having anyhow in all of us, even if we stop emitting tomorrow, and to have a reliable data on weather, on pollution, on soil states, on every source of risk that we have, is absolutely crucial for the adaptation policy. So we have an initiative that I'm sure you have discussed today, we have mentioned today several times, which is the European Green Deal Data Space, which is precisely the data hub for climate and environment data. We have data strategy that we've put also on the table, a number of regulations and recommendations. This is the Market Act, the Open Data Directive, the Data Governance Act. So all these different dimensions that we need to address in our, let us say, in our common governance of this blood for our economy and our society.
Thank you very much. And if anybody's tweeting, I think that's a nice one. The blood. I haven't actually heard the blood before. I've heard data is the oil, data is currency, oil, and so on. But blood of policy making. Have you come across that one?
Lifeline, but yes, blood, and I like blood better.
Okay. Yeah. So there we go, Sheila. Thank you very much, Clara, for that. And somebody, please, can you tweet it? Now, as I say, I like to let everybody lay out their stall. So let me come to you because, no, actually, do you know what? That's very rude. I'm going to come to Irma because I'm going to look at the whole kind of industrial players side of things. It's good to get that mix, and then I will come to you. We've heard this, Irma, throughout, you know, and again, let me remind you all from Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, we've heard throughout that, you know, pooling data is absolutely critical. We've heard the reasons why it doesn't happen enough. So I think everybody is cognizant and aware of that, but particularly pooling data in a sustainability data space. So let's find out how HPE are already doing it. I am queen of examples. So can you give us some concrete examples of how, please?
Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Katrina. First of all, I would like to congratulate Digital Europe for making it happen for once again this year, this very emblematic conference. And we all know that it's not easy to juggle with the pandemic's constraints. So coming to your question, Katrina, in my view, the best way to encourage data pooling, data sharing, not only from industrial players, but also from governments and individuals, is to provide them with trust and transparency. Several research, including a recent one from the MIT, show that more than 60% of companies are willing to share their data. They see the usefulness, but in reality, they don't, because they are very concerned with data privacy and security concerns. Another result of this research is that they are requesting desperately for clear industry standards to be developed. So that means that they need legal certainty and clear standards. And the very good news is that the European Union is in the very good track, because this is what precisely the European Commission is doing with the creation of data spaces that Mrs. de la Torre just mentioned. The objective is to connect currently fragmented and dispersed data from various ecosystems, but ensuring that the owners of the data will keep them under control. And at HPE, we are supporting all these efforts. We are heavily involved in the design of secure digital infrastructure architecture, and in the definition of standards for securing compliant data exchanges. This is why also we are an active member of the European Gaia X Foundation, which is made up of representatives from business, administration, academia, and also science. All are working together to create a federated and secure data infrastructure ecosystem. It is a software federation system that connects cloud providers and data owners to boost the creation of new common data spaces. When talking about sustainability, there is an energy data space that has been created within Gaia X, with the aim to support the development of green solutions related to electric vehicles, renewables, or low carbon hydrogen technologies. And very quickly, I would like to also give a good example on how the technology is contributing to extract value from data to fight climate change. It has to do with HPC, which stands for high performance computing. And one of the world's fastest supercomputer is based in Finland. It's a pre-exascale machine financed by the European Union. And the computing facilities of this machine are applied to collaborate to the program of the European Union called Destination Earth. The objective is to build a digital twin of the Earth. So the scientists and researchers are collecting and sharing every available data to develop high fidelity modeling of the Earth, oceans, landmass, and the global atmosphere. The objective of all this exercise is to better understand how climate adapts to human action. So this example shows that the progress of research, the progress of science, including environmental science, is very dependent on the availability and high quality of data.
Absolutely. And I think absolutely critical, availability, but high quality. Not all data is created equal, which makes, thank you very much. I will come back to you, but allows me to turn to you, Ellen. So tell us a bit more, about, and you are a unicorn winner, so tell us, unicorn winner, how Circulor uses data to help other companies be more sustainable.
Yeah,
doing that.
Well, I love that you brought up the 80% of companies' data is not being used. What an opportunity. We've got a lot of data that, if it's tapped, can really create the connection and create an opportunity to work together towards our climate ambitions and our economic ambitions. So at Circulor, we like to think of ourselves as the pioneers of proof. So a lot of companies are making claims on GHG emissions, ESG goals, but we need to go deeper now in terms of supplying the proof on how we're doing it. And from a circular perspective, we understand that data, the valuable data, has to be real time and it has to be fully transparent. And so Circulor really got its start in battery materials. So looking at some of the materials that may have the most damaging impacts on our planet and our communities, right? So we create a reliable chain of custody from the source and provenance of that raw material through the production and manufacturing, even as it changes state, into the production of that material so that we can give it an identity. And then also when you're talking about batteries, once a battery hits 70% degradation, that's not a good battery anymore. And it needs to go into second life and recycling and come back and create a circularity. So the data when you start with the provenance of that material can really enable the next flows of that material as well.
And you used, actually, funny enough, there you said, you didn't use the word that we chat, you said radically transparent.
I love that term.
Yeah, you said radically transparent. And so when
I stole it from a friend though, so I can't take it.
We don't mind. But radically transparent is great. And obviously when we hear the statistic from Irma there that was, okay, we've done this survey and 60% of companies that are willing to share, but actually in reality, very conservative, very protective. I mean, radically transparent. What are the challenges to access that data and achieve that radical transparency?
Yeah, I think Circulor has had some great customers that have been leaders, and they wanted to set their brand value proposition on being a partner with its customers on making our world more sustainable. And so they create those goals, and then they seek out that radical transparency. They work with us to create that real-time visibility into their supply chain. And then they are reducing their risks. They're upping their competitive advantage. And
their reputation and their profile.
100%. Yeah.
Okay, I will absolutely come back to you. Let me just turn to Annika. Now, instead, I do have a question. I'm just going to save a minute because I think, if I'm right, Annika, you said that you could add something, on data spaces. And since that came up, I just wanted to sort of tie that off and see if there was something you wanted to add into the mix there. If I can, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
You look like a BBC journalist who's standing out
in the middle of the war zone. Yes, thank you first of all, and thank you for inviting me. I'll be happy to talk more about data and its role for the green transition if there's time for that as well. But just on the common data spaces,
I will come back to you.
Yes. So just on the common data spaces, I do think that when it comes to the Commission's current efforts to create these common data spaces, to promote the pooling of data, this can be really a great way to bring together relevant data for accelerating the green transition. I should say that at European Policy Center, we've been taking a closer look at the creation of a data space for a circular economy. And we've seen that some of the basic challenges to improving information transfer for a circular economy relate to concerns over data protection, fragmented data ecosystems, underdeveloped digital solutions, lack of incentives for businesses and consumers to share data and information. So obviously we need to address these basic concerns as well. But when it comes to developing the common data spaces, if they really are to support the green transition, I would say that we need to consider especially the following. The data centers that are created, for example, for supporting agriculture and mobility, it's important that these data spaces cover properly also the sustainability considerations. Or ideally, we will have one integrated metadata space, which will allow for easy flow and comparison of information between the different data spaces. And if there's interest, I'll be happy to give some more additional reflections on what the creation of a data space for a circular economy should look like and what should be considered in that context. But these are just a few thoughts to get started.
Thank you very much. But did you wanted to just, let me just stick with you momentarily, just so that I can, get a steer on the potential that you see for data, because this is really the critical point we're making to accelerate the green transition. And again, I come back and say, there's me being terribly naive at the start when we heard that it's kind of emerging, this link. So what points have you not heard yet in terms of potential for data to accelerate the green transition? Is there anything that hasn't been put on the table, do you think?
I think I could speak on this for a long time. I think just want to start by just saying that I think, and I hope that we all agree on the urgent need for a green transition. And I would like to remind us that while we've been referring also here today a lot to the climate crisis, the planetary crisis we are actually in is even more complex and challenging. So in addition to climate change, also our nature and biodiversity, our ecosystems are under threat. And we also have a chemical and waste crisis at our hands. And it's all these different emergencies around us that require our attention, and it's now. And so when we look at data and what data can do for us, I think it's worthwhile to recognize that we've for long been gathering data to understand and address different climate environmental challenges, for example, on emissions and species. But I think there's so much more we can do to think bigger in how we can turn data and data-driven digital tools into real enablers for sustainability and for the green transition. So if we think of digitalization as a way to address complexities, this is the moment in time when we should be looking at how can we turn to the power of data and data-driven digital solutions to address the greatest barriers to the green transition and really bring about a real breakthroughs. And if there's time, I'm happy to give a few examples on this. But
just give one. Well, give one for now, just in the interest of time, and then I happily at the end. But go on, give us one quick example, if you will.
So maybe just to say that. Obviously, we've already talked about the importance of what kind of data we also get. I should also mention that when we're talking about the sustainability challenges, it's worthwhile to recognize that different kind of sustainability challenges require different kind of data, and also how this data is shared or used differs depending on the challenge we talk about. So when it comes to, for example, addressing environmental degradation, we actually still have gaps in knowledge when it comes to understanding our maritime ecosystems. And these knowledge gaps can actually hamper the decisions we make today. And in the worst scenario, this lack of information may even accelerate climate change. So if we don't become better in measuring and accounting for oceans' role as natural carbon sinks and their role as allies in climate action and using this acquired information as a basis for oceans protection, there's actually a huge risk that we'll lose our greatest ally in climate action.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to turn back because what I think it's lovely because you are here, from DG Climate Action. What I sort of come to you, Clara, with two offerings for you to just contribute. The first is just first of all to give you a moment to comment on anything you've heard thus far, because that's you just from your fellow panelists. But the second is importantly, and you raised it yourself, the Fit for 55 package. Digital Europe clearly sees the potential for the greater role for digital technologies in the EU's climate policies. So I think there is this feeling like, how can we better integrate digital into those policies, not least the Fit for 55? How can we make sure that they are married up better?
Indeed, this is a challenge that we have. But one thing, Fit for 55 applies or is addressed to the whole economy. The ICT sector. And data management and all these things is part of the economy. So this sector will have also to do the transformation, the green transformation that any other part of the economy. We know that the digital sector, the ICT sector is an emitter as other sectors, but also there have been there are studies on their. And here I want to put emphasis on the enabling capacity of that sector and all these technologies. And there are orders of magnitude around 10 times the enabling capacity of the ICT sector for reaching the Fit for 55 objectives is quite important. ICT technologies are enabling technologies in all economic sectors, and it cannot be different when we're talking about sustainability and transformation of our economy. to do this, that's easy to say, but we need a huge transformation of our economy, both from the green perspective and the digital perspective. We always talk, as you know, about the twin transition. And for this, we need we need regulation, which you know we're working on. We need data, of course, and we need investments. And so embedded in our overall strategy, in which Fit for 55 is part of it. You know that we have this huge amount of resources on the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which is once in a generation opportunity. And there, not only 37% of it is aimed at dealing with the green transition, but 20% of it has to be devoted to digitalization. So these investments that we need in new businesses for the digital sector, but also in refurbishing or rendering their infrastructures greener, if I can say, are supported by the union, not least with all the programs that we have dealing with innovation, dealing with research, like Horizon Europe, and all the funds that there exist for the different regions in Europe for the transformation. So the ICT, data management are all really part of this conundrum of initiatives that are going to bring us, hopefully, I'm convinced, to the climate neutrality in 2050. Just a couple of seconds, you asked me, Katrina, and reactions of things we've heard. I mean, there are plenty of very interesting things on which we are not going to react, but there are. I would like to. I think it was Irma who referred to the importance of standards, and I would like to remind our kind audience that yesterday the Commission put on the table a new standardization strategy, which precisely aims at making standards really fit for purpose in our single market, making our competitive advantages to be even more forceful, and making sure that standardization and innovation go hand in hand. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for that, because absolutely, again, a nice one to tweet. Standardization and innovation do go together hand in hand. So anyone tweeting, I think that's another nice one. Can I just come back to this issue that you said and turn to Irma, and then I will come to you, Ellen. This issue that you said, yes, we know it's not even an elephant in a room because, hey, it's there. The digital sector as a big emitter. So if we look at some of those statistics, it's estimated that data centers make up around 1 to 2% of global emissions. But despite the exponential growth in demand, energy usage itself has remained stable. So what steps is the data center sector taking to improve its own environmental footprint? We need to just look at this because it's not been something we've touched upon in particular depth today. Just your thoughts on that, please. If you're there, Irma. I think you are. We don't hear you. I think have you muted yourself? You've been terribly disciplined to stay muted, and now you are still muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We're going to have to mime your response then, which might have been difficult at the end of the day for us to actually understand. Go for it. Yes, tell us what steps is the data taking to reduce its own footprint.
Okay, Katrina, thank you for the question. But before, I would like just quickly comment on what was said by Mrs. Hedberg earlier. I fully agree that it is important also to incentivize the pooling of data. But when we talk about incentives, often we think about money, about economic incentive. One incentive, maybe it's not the correct way to name it, but it's awareness raising. I think that an important effort should be made by everyone, including the institutions, European institutions, on pedagogy, on awareness raising of the general public, but also the small and medium enterprises. We tend to forget that, the 90% of companies, or 90, or even a higher figure, is of the companies of the European Union are small and medium businesses. Those happen to be also cloud services providers or digital services provider, and they may not know about data spaces. What for? So I think that the pedagogy needs to be made, and to that end, the European Commission could rely on trade associations joining efforts, and also, we could partner with companies to amplify this message. So, because on one hand, the policy making jargon is not easy, nor it is the technological jargon. So I think that the general public is not well aware why those data spaces are needed and what are the value for their lives, to improve the way they live and work in areas such as health, education, the food they consume, and well, a never-ending list of disciplines. Just coming to your question on the data centers, energy.
Yeah, just give us three steps. I'm just keeping my eye on time. Just give us 3 steps that you would say that.
Yeah. So
that are being taken.
just to explain the data you mentioned that seems contradictory, it's important to take a broader picture and not look only at data centers, but at the efficiency gains in computing and infrastructure. Thanks to technology, we have today infrastructures that are much more efficient than their predecessors. And the good news is that much more is to come. So we have, at HPE, we have developed a lot of patents to develop low carbon solutions, and we have 100 of them, so that other players, namely startups, also can develop low carbon technology applications. And very quickly, I would like to mention also that the way to improve the what we call IT for sustainability is to deliver the IT, be it the infrastructures, be it solutions, the whole IT as a service, because that way the organizations will consume only what they need, and that will help them in saving energy and other resources. So that we are strongly confident that as a service, IT consumption model for IT is the right way for achieving the sustainability goals of our customers.
Thank you. Yes, come in. I'm coming to Annika because I was going to ask if you wanted to chip in first.
Sure.
Before,
Yeah.
Go for it,
so
please.
I guess I would consider Circulor and our network of data as a data space, as Irma says. Yes. And our technology allows the different players in that space to reliably and in a trustful way gain the data they need and have that confidence so that they can share and they can see the anomalies and the risks in the supply chain. We've talked a lot about, I think we've all lived the semiconductor shortage and all of that. And there is really great momentum towards doing things differently, bringing it home, et cetera. I would say the first step, though, is seeing your value chain, right? Mapping it, seeing it in real time, and then you can relocate it. So back to your point on a value proposition to companies, they first need to see the dynamic picture of their value chain and then be able to make those decisions to move it elsewhere. I will say, too, we work with a company, British Volt, in the UK, and they are tracking their battery materials, which is something that we do and have done for 5 years, but they're going a step further. They're going to also track the entire construction of their giga plant in the UK, plus indirect and direct economic development that takes place and the emissions of that building, of that facility. And it really is setting a new standard for, the gigawatt hours annually that we all need to build. And globally, it's setting that standard. We don't just do gigawatt hours annually. We do it sustainably. We do it locally. We create jobs. And that's where that data can go when we can share it and have a reliable, chain of trust.
And then just an important point, just to say, because I asked you first, you're using data and you explain how you're helping companies be more sustainable. You gave an example there of this company in the UK. Are you helping companies of all sizes? Because there's also been this conversation today about some of the bigger actors and yet some of the lack of accessibility or capacity of some of the smaller companies and the SMEs. How do you sort of see that? How do you deal with that?
We work with big players, automotive OEMs, also downstream or upstream, miners and suppliers, the big ones. But also just this week, we announced a partnership with an Australian company, Element 25, to create zero carbon manganese with them. And what they're doing is they're at the upstream, but then they will use our technology to ensure that that information and that trust of zero carbon is carried through down to the customers.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Let me turn back to, and that's the great thing. You're with me, so you can just raise your hand. That's
me.
Me. Me. Pick me. It's like Donkey and Shrek. So how? Let me just come to Annika, and then I do have another question for you.